Hey everybody, I'm James Kotecki, and I am on location today in what is apparently the Great American West. I'm here today to interview the former governor of Arkansas and Republican presidential candidate, Mike Huckabee. Here we are with Governor Mike Huckabee. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me.
You're quite welcome, James. Glad to be with you.
And let's just get right to it because we don't have a lot of time. The debates last night, you expressed some disappointment with the format of the debates. What's the one thing that you really wanted to say during the debates that you didn't get to talk about, and we'll talk about it now?
I wanted to talk about the fair tax. I wanted to talk about getting rid of a tax system that's really hurting Americans, hurting American families and jobs and businesses, and replacing it with something completely designed to be flatter, fairer, finite, and family friendly. I wanted to talk about education. You know, it's frustrating. We've been in 3 debates now, 3 debates, and not one time has a question been raised about education, and yet it's one of the most important topics that people are talking about when they're raising their families. So, you know, how can you have a Republican debate for 2 hours and never bring up the tax issue when it's the signature Republican issue?
So let's talk about, you talked about the fair tax a lot in your YouTube video, actually.
Yes.
But let's talk about education, because I don't think we've heard a lot about that, as you said.
That's right.
Tell me about your plans for education.
Well, it's very frustrating to me that we see a system where every 60 seconds, 2 kids drop out of high school. Now the dropout rate's 30%. And in addition to the ones that are dropping out, you also have to factor in there are a lot of kids who are putting their heads on their desk and taking a very expensive nap at the expense of taxpayers, billions of dollars being spent. And it's not because these kids are dumb, they're bored. So part of what we have to do is raise the standards. We have to measure, we have to have accountability, merit pay for teachers. But we've got to do something that's equally important, and that's launch what I call weapons of mass instruction. We've made a big mistake by taking music and art out of the curriculum of our schools. Here's why it's a mistake to do that. If a student's going to have a real education, both the left and the right sides of the brain have to be developed. Otherwise, what you end up with is simply a data transfer. It's like having one dumb terminal downloaded to another dumb terminal without a processor. And without a processor, a computer is not very valuable.
Without kind of contextualizing what they're doing.
Exactly. And to think about, what am I going to do with this information? Not just that I possess it, how do I process it? What can I do to make it work for me? That's the creative side. Well, every study shows that if you want to improve a student's math scores, put him in a music class. His math scores actually go up and his math aptitude goes up. If you want to improve language skills, particularly foreign language study, music helps to do that. Music students do 20 points better on an SAT. In addition, you really are touching the talents of kids who otherwise are going to get bored to death and maybe feel like that, if they can't excel in one subject, that they just don't care anymore. It teaches leadership, discipline, focus. There are a lot of values. And it's not just some sort of extraneous, fluffy, feel-good thing. It's a vital part of a real, genuine curriculum.
Back in 1994, when the Republicans took Congress, they were talking about taking out the Department of Education entirely. Yeah. So what kind of reforms would you make? Would they be focused more on the state level, or what is the federal government's proper role in education?
Really, as a cheerleader, the education is the role and the responsibility of states. And I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. If there's anything I'm kind of frustrated with, is that this city, Washington, D.C., has forgotten we have a 10th Amendment. They seem to have forgotten that Thomas Jefferson won this battle with Alexander Hamilton over whether we should have a strong centralized federal government and weak states, or very strong states and a relatively weak centralized federal government. Our founding fathers felt that what was best was to have states where we had strength and vitality and laboratories of good government, and that we did not centralize too much power in Washington. Well, over the years, we've done the exact opposite of that.
Let's talk about another issue that the Founding Fathers raised, which was the issue of religion and government. Thomas Jefferson phrased it, not in the Constitution, obviously, but in one of his letters, as the separation of church and state.
Sure.
I think you're such an interesting candidate because you are an ordained Baptist,
right.
An ordained
That's
Baptist
great.
minister.
Right.
You served Baptist congregations for a number of years.
Right.
And I think I can see how that would play very well to the Republican base and probably Southern Republicans in Arkansas. Are you concerned that when you look at a national election, after I'm sure you're hoping you win the primary,
yeah.
Are you afraid that when you look at a national election, people might have some hesitancy about that because you are essentially the embodiment of church and state together in one person?
Well, no, I don't think people would. I mean, they might if I hadn't been a governor for 10.5 years and had a long record of working on education and healthcare and road building. And I don't think people would probably feel the same way if let's say I'd gone directly from being a pastor and running for president. I'm sure people say, well, but what have you done in government that lets us understand that you understand what that job is about? But 10.5 years is a long time to be governor, 3 years to be a lieutenant governor. So I think I've earned my credentials governmentally, but also what my background has done is given me an understanding to really know that I could put a name and a face on every social pathology that you can mention. Because every type of human hurt, every type of human condition, I've seen up close and personal. So there's nothing out there that I couldn't say, yep, I've seen that. I understand what impact that particular issue has on human lives. And it's not abstract for me. It's real. It's genuine. It's made me a better governor through the years. I think it would make me a much better president.
Thanks.